Welcome, friend, to Life and Liberty Radio. I'm David Householder, here to encourage your pursuit of happiness. You and I are partners, exploring our shared spiritual journeys. Together, we're dreaming and working for a free society. Tell others today about our adventure in faith and freedom. So breathe in, open your mind, lift up your spirit. Let's get started. Thanks so much for sticking with me. This is segment 6 of 7. I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to go point by point through the State of the Union address. And I'm going to be looking at everything that comes out in the detail end and show that basically the foundational, propositional nature of President Obama's worldview is just off, and that creates problems in the practical. When you have a worldview that's off, it leads to conclusions that are off. And I just am making the case that he means well and that he's trying to do the right thing. But the truth is his foreign policy, and we're going to deal with that here mostly in segment 6, is basically become that of George Bush squared or cubed. And what do I mean by that? We had George Bush, who was pretty much ruled by his war room, with Cheney and Rumsfeld and Condoleezza Rice and Paul Wolfowitz and that whole gang. And they're known now as the neocons, and it's not a very complimentary term. Neocons are both conservatives and liberals, Democrats and Republicans. They're basically people who are called maximalists, people who believe that we need to intervene more rather than less in the world. And this was started by Scoop Jackson and some others back when I was young. But the truth is, neocon maximalist thinking gets us into so much trouble because it leads to perpetual war, perpetual enemies, and no real victories. So let's look at this State of the Union address. So we begin where we left off in segment 5 with Afghanistan. And the president picks it up here. Beyond 2014, Americans' commitment to a unified and sovereign Afghanistan will endure, but the nature of our commitment will change. We are negotiating an agreement with the Afghan government that focuses on 2 missions: training and equipping Afghan forces so that the country does not again slip into chaos, and counter-terrorism efforts that allow us to pursue the remnants of Al-Qaeda and their affiliates. So what's he saying here? Basically that we've got 2 missions now in Afghanistan: training and equipping Afghan forces so that the country does not again slip into chaos. So tell me, with point number 1, when do we know that we're finished? Well, when do we stop keeping them from slipping into chaos? If chaos is a possibility, do we stay there forever? Because if we leave, they might slip into chaos. So we're there. This is all means and no end. Do you understand what I'm saying? All means and no end. We're doing a lot of things, but there is no end in this plan. And point 2, counterterrorism efforts that allow us to pursue the remnants of Al-Qaeda and their affiliates. Counterterrorism efforts. So point 1 is training and equipping Afghan forces so that the country doesn't slip into chaos, which could happen at any time. But if we leave, it's more likely, so we'll never leave. And point 2, counterterrorism efforts. When in the world are counterterrorism efforts going to be finished in Central Asia? Well, that would be never. So pretty much we're going to be there till Jesus comes back. And this training of Afghan forces reminds me so much of late 60s Vietnamization. When the war became unpopular, our president started saying, we're going to Vietnamize things. We're going to become just the advisors, and we're going to be in charge, but we're going to put the Vietnamese troops out there in place of ourselves. Well, we all know how that ended. And it looks like we're headed in the same direction since we are unable to learn as a culture. The truth is, Afghanistan is Obama's war, much bigger level than Bush ever had. Escalated the war there. And we did get Osama bin Laden, but it turns out he never was in Afghanistan, or he hasn't been there for a long, long time. He was in Pakistan next to their basically walking distance or biking distance to their military academy. And somehow living in a suburb, nobody knew he was there. So Afghanistan was Obama's big war, and I'm still not sure what the purpose is. I've talked to several veterans and interviewed them on the radio. What was the purpose over there? And nobody had an answer, which is a really bad way to go to war. This is why The Constitution says that the Congress must declare war. In the midst of declare is the word clarity. We haven't any clarity. We haven't declared a war since 1941. Well, okay, since we haven't declared a war since the 40s, it's small wonder that all the wars since then, we're not sure if we have won. We're over in Korea right now because we're still technically at a state of war in Korea because it was an armistice and not a peace plan. And that's pretty shaky, as you know, right now. And how long are we going to be there? 5, 6, 7 more decades? We've been there for many decades already. And since we're in there for good, and we didn't declare war. So that makes it less clear. And then he talks about drones. He doesn't say drones, but he says, instead, we will need to help countries like Yemen, Libya, and Somalia provide for their own security and help allies who take the fight to terrorists as we have in Mali. Okay. Took the fight to the terrorists in Mali. Help me understand whether there was any congressional advice, notification, or anything here. Are we declaring war on whom? Should we stay there until we can keep the country from slipping into chaos and until we've hunted down the remnants of Al-Qaeda? And who's really even a part of Al-Qaeda anyways? Is it an organized group or just people who call themselves Al-Qaeda? Do you get a membership card for that? How can you prove that a person's a part of that? If you like blowing stuff up in the middle part of the world, you can just say, well, hey, we're from Al-Qaeda, and you get people's attention. So I'm not even sure there is an Al-Qaeda. There is a story going around, which I believe to be true, that Zbigniew Brzezinski actually came up with the word Al-Qaeda, which means list, and it was the list of people in Afghanistan who are willing to fight the Russians, which we were funding. So maybe we started Al-Qaeda. I don't know, but we can continue to meddle. Meddling makes enemies. Good fences make good neighbors, and we need to mind our own business. So we're going to take the fight to the terrorists as we have in Mali. So great. We are picking winners in a civil war between two evil sides. We've got the dictators and the militarists on one side who took power from the civil government by just kicking them out. And we've got the Islamist extremists on the other side. So which side would you pick? I would say none of the above. Thank you very much. Let them fight it out. And once again, it's totally undeclared. We continue to create terrorists every day. And most of this warfare is through drones, which are never popular to have flying over your country. And it's kind of the ultimate form of terrorism, to be dropping drones from the sky on people, and pretty much always collateral damage because people don't live by themselves in Unabomber cabins very often. And it's just, don't even get me started on drones. I do whole shows on drones. So we're creating terrorists every day, which makes job security for the anti-terrorism people. And I hate to be that cynical. So then he talks about North Korea. The regime in North Korea must know that they will only achieve security and prosperity by meeting their international obligations. Don't feed the trolls, please. This country's run by trolls, North Korea, and we continue to give them the attention they're looking for. Do you think that might be why they're shooting missiles around and detonating little bombs? Well, yeah, they're doing that because they're trying to get attention. And what do? We give it to them. Don't feed the trolls. Leave them alone. Get out of the Korean Peninsula. Let the local powers there in the area solve the problem. It's not our fight, not our problem. What we're doing there is just absolutely beyond me. And then he talks about Iran. Likewise, the leaders of Iran must recognize that now is the time for a diplomatic solution because a coalition stands united in demanding that they meet their obligations, and we will do what is necessary to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, but who are we to tell them they can't? Should another country tell us that we can't? Last I checked, sovereign countries are free to defend themselves as they see fit. And us not wanting them to get a weapon is one thing, and I don't want them to get a weapon. But it's not my decision any more than it's China's decision as to whether or not we should have nuclear weapons. So we are a country that is more important than other countries. All countries are equal, but some are more equal than others. The truth is, if people want to get a nuclear weapon, they can. A country can if they want to develop it. And the technology is there. You can get it on the internet. And so as if we think we can decide who can be nuclear powers and who can't, the truth is you can't. And I don't even know. I can't even tell from the evidence if Iran really wants to get a nuclear weapon. It's hard to say. And once again, we go posturing all over the Middle East, and we don't pay attention to the one really, really smart country in the Middle East. That would be Israel. How does Israel handle things? Well, Israel wants peace. Israel does not want war. Israel does not initiate wars. Why not? Because they're a little country in a bad neighborhood. And when you are a little house in a bad neighborhood, as you might have been at one point in your life, you stay out of other people's fights, and you keep to yourself and mind your own business. You don't posture. And if somebody really threatens you, truly threatens you, not just potentially, but truly threatens you, take them out. Just take them out. And that's what Israel does. Israel hits hard, but only when they are in clear and present danger. Otherwise, they mind their own business, and they don't escalate the situation through posturing or anything else, which, again, if they were to escalate, it would be like feeding the trolls. We don't need to do that. And the truth is, Israel could turn any country in the Middle East into a sheet of glass if they wanted to. They are one of the largest nuclear powers in the world, and they have the best air force, arguably, in the world, and they have no qualms using it if they need to. And no country is going to attack Israel. Since they got the bomb, they haven't done it. I wonder why. Because they don't want to destroy themselves. So watch Israel. Pay attention to the people on the ground that are paying attention to the situation. If you're like me, you love getting packages in the mail from Amazon. I love to check the side of my house because that's where they come. I've got a little table set up there. I think, ooh, there's a package. And I love shopping with Amazon. You say, well, it costs extra with the shipping, but the truth is you'd spend a lot more in gas and time just driving around looking for stuff. You can find almost anything on Amazon. It's kind of like the old Sears catalog or the Wells Fargo wagon. It's part of our American tradition to have delivery to our homes. And if you shop on Amazon, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Would you please do all of your Amazon shopping through my website, davidhouseholder.com. Go to davidhouseholder.com. At the top of the page, there's an Amazon banner. Click on there and do your shopping from there. If you do that, I will get a portion of the proceeds, which will keep this show on the air. So it's good for you, it's good for me, it's good for everybody. Hey, it's good for America. Shop on Amazon and do it through davidhouseholder.com. And then he goes on to talk about cyber attacks. America must also face the rapidly growing threat from cyber attacks. We know hackers steal people's identities and infiltrate private email. Okay, well, the government wants to infiltrate our email, and I'm not just making this up, but this is not some weird conspiracy. Our government wants to read all of our emails, and they're building a computer, a supercomputer in Utah, where they're going to store every tweet, every Facebook message, every email you've ever written, and there it will be searchable. So other people are infiltrating private email, he says. Well, that's the pot calling the kettle black. And I think it's very, very unfortunate. Then he goes on to talk about why we can't have privacy anymore. That's why earlier today I signed a new executive order. Executive order just makes me nervous. That will strengthen our cyber defenses by increasing information sharing. In other words, telling everybody about everything. And developing standards to protect our national security, our jobs, and our privacy. Protect our privacy by spying on us. Now, Congress must act as well by passing legislation to give our government a greater capacity to secure our networks and deter attacks. Giving our government a greater capacity to secure our networks. And there's a euphemism for be able to read everything you do online, which goes back to the Patriot Act, so-called Patriot Act, and everything around it, which is patently unconstitutional. So he goes on and on and on about our foreign policy, which is an absolute mess. And then he goes on to talk about how we need to be the anchor of security in every corner of the earth. Help me understand how this is not just some crazy neocon fantasy This is the Bush war room cubed and quadrupled to the 10th power. It just continues. This is mass interventionism. Interventionism is the craziest form of foreign policy I can even imagine. But it goes on and on and on about that. And he talks about, so long as I'm commander-in-chief. The truth is, President Obama, you're not commander-in-chief. You're only commander-in-chief according to the Constitution when Congress has declared a war. They haven't. That would leave you unemployed in the military business. And just ramp it down, because we've been at war every day of your presidency, and we'll be at war every day for the rest of your presidency. And don't blame that on someone else. You've been there 8 years. World War II, the entire thing, took 3.5, and obviously you're getting a lot out of it. So our foreign policy is a mess, and we're continuing to move in an interventionist pattern. And interventionism is no way to make for a peaceful world. Interventionism is a good way to continue to rattle cages where they don't need to be rattled. There's an Asian proverb that says, let sleeping dogs lie, don't grab them by their ears to see if they bite. And we continue to throw our weight around all around the world, create enemies, and wonder why they attack us. So we need to get a hold of what it means to be a peaceful, respectable nation that minds its own business. And the truth is, you know what? If we minded our own business, we would have so few enemies. Well, that's all for today on Life and Liberty Radio. Thanks so much for sharing this part of your spiritual journey with me. Now, the views on this program are not necessarily those of my advertisers, sponsors, places I work, or do business with. They're purely my own, but I'm sharing them with you, so share your ideas with me. Write me on Twitter at Liberty House, LIBERTYHOUS, no E. Until next time, let's continue dreaming and working for a free and spiritually grounded society.